Thank you. Okay, where do we leave off? We left off
Tashma
on the bottom of Samach Gimel and Bebeis. So the sugi we just left off with, or we're in the middle of, is if somebody again, the sugi that we've been, the perek is about what's included in the sale, what's not included in the sale. And based on the terminology that's used in the contracts, etc., etc. So we said that Stam saying that you're selling the house with the and the holes and the roof is not enough to sell, to include above the roof, and not enough to include the virus and the wells and all that. You have to mamish describe. You have to say mitahaim ara, from the depths of the land, on rum rakia, and mamish until the rakia. Yeah. So that's
which we know today like that when you're doing a contract of what's included and what's not.
Right, but the question is if you didn't. Right, if you didn't, so then what's the defaults?
What's left there? What's left there after he moves out?
Well, yeah, can you mun him back? That's the question. Right. But anyway, right. So he was saying that, and if you want to include the bar and the roof, then you have to mamish say this lush. That was Rav Dimi's din. So Tasha, we're trying to find one proof yesterday, and now we continue trying to find the proof of this. Tashima, second line up from the bottom. Samakim of it. Tashima, v'leis agag was machi yeshel ma'ikut gavaya saratoch. And not a gag, but man that it has a mica that's 10 tvachim high. That's in our Mishnah. It's not included in the sale when you have on the roof, you have a fence, 10 tvachim high. On Tamid Aleph, Isakadai to the stomach, Kani, Veruma. And if you're going to think that the stam, you're kind of the depths and the heights. So who cares if it's Gavaya Sor Tvachim? If the default is that it's included automatically in the sale, so now you don't need to come on to this height of the 10 tvachim of the fence around the roof. So Gemara says, nah, it's not a proof. Maybe it's not included, but since it's 10 tvachim high, so therefore it's considered something unto its own, and therefore if he didn't mention it, all right, he's not going to keep this roof. Huh? And it's interesting, as the Rashbam says, Lafi this pshat, the buyer gets the house and anything above 10 tfachim, but not that 10 tfachim. That's the way the Rashbam explains it. So it comes out as it's weird that the immediate part of the roof he doesn't get. Above that he does get. Now we have a kasha on Rav Dimi.
What does that mean?
Meaning, let's say, the way I understand it is, let's say he has like a tree house hanging off the side of his house, but above 10 tfachim, higher than his roof. Right? So then I would say that that is sold. Right? Just not the makam chashuv. Meaning, again, this is according to the way we're trying to slug up the brisa. Right? That's the way on this. I wouldn't have said this on my own, but that's the way the Rashbam says it. Okay, so then Amalei Ravina Larashi, this is a kasha now. Tashma Damarish Lakish, this is from two Baladigos, yesterday's daf. So I say Meres. This is what the Bryce is saying. Amarcha Bryce Chavera. Somebody sells a bias to his friend. Vamarlei Amanasha, do you tell Yana Shali? And the one selling it says on condition that the upper beams are mine. Dutel Yana Shaloi. So then the Dutel Yana goes to him. And we say, what's the halacha? Well, why do he say this? What's the We said, Brett, that you don't add words into a contract unless they mean something. So if you automatically get to keep the roof, so then why does he have to say that he can keep the beams? So it must be, Rav Zvid is saying that the beams means that he's allowed to let the beams stick out into the neighbor's yard because he sold the yard too. And Rav Papa Amar, that if he wants to build an ali on top of it, then he can. And if you think, like Rav Dimi says, that when you sell a house, it doesn't include the top or the bottom, meaning the basement or the roof. So lameli amanas. What does he need amanas? Just say, I'm selling you the house, and you don't have to say anything, and the roof is not going to him. So the Gemara answers, "Hanile amanas the nafal hadar banile." The amanas helps that if it fell down, he's allowed to rebuild it. All right? Meaning, if the guy selling the field would not have said anything, he would be allowed to build the roof. But if the roof fell down, he would not be able, or whatever he's building on top of the roof, if it fell down, he wouldn't be able to do it. Right?
What's the riot one way or another? This is just two Amarayim that are being clearly what another Amarayim says. What does that have to do with Ravdimi's then?
What do you mean? We're just trying to look for potential. We're looking for potential ways, different ways. Right? We're just trying to look for potential ways that maybe the Brisa is not a kasha or a riot.
But the riot is from a Papa's interpretation of Reish Lakish. And if you go look at Zvid, like it's not a problem. Like it's nothing to do with Ravdimi.
What?
If you go with Zvid's interpretation of Reish Lakish, there's no proof either way. So what exactly are we gaining out of this? More than what Ravdimi himself held.
No, we're just saying that maybe it's not a proof. That's all.
Aren't we Tashma as a proof against Ravdimi?
Correct. So then we're saying, okay.
Well, how is it a proof against Ravdimi if you're relying on Papa's interpretation of Reish Lakish?
Right.
And let's say he holds like Zvid. I'm just theorizing. Like, who cares?
Yeah. And
so there's an Amira. He's learning and he's interpreting another Amira's svara, and there's an Amira that's chalak in him that would make it not shver. So it's not a right either way in halacha.
Right. I hear. You're right. We're just trying. I understand all these give and takes. Is that we're just fishing? But I hear. That's the other.
The Gemara before was bringing tashmas from prices. That's the normal way of bringing a raya. To say tashma from an Amira's interpretation of another Amira against an Amira seems off.
Yeah. I hear. Yeah. Okay. So then let's see the next Mishnah, because we continue along the same lines. So Zok the Mishnah. When you're selling, so loyas habor, you're not selling a bar, loyas hadus, and not a dus. Well, the Gemara is going to ask, what's the difference between a bar and a dus? They're both water. They're both there to hold water. Even if he writes in the shtar, even if he writes in the contract that he's selling the depths and the ruma, the heights, they still don't get the bar and the dus. But here's the problem: how's he accessing it? That's going to be most of the daf today. How is the sell? So let's say the seller sold the whole house and the yard, and he kept the virus. So how is he getting to the bar? right? Does that mean when the Mishnah says that he's not selling it to him, does that mean not selling it to him, including a pathway to get to them? Or does he know? No, he owns the bar, but he has no way to access it. So that's let's see. So and the seller has to buy, he has to buy from the buyer a derech. He has to buy a path in order to get to this bar. Say, no, you don't. You do not have to take a derech, because that it's understood that since the seller gets to keep the bar, he also gets the access to the bar. So again, Rebbe Kiva holds that he has to buy himself access. Chachamim say he does not have to buy himself access. Rebbe Kiva is but Rebbe Kiva's maida that in the shtar, if he writes that he's selling the house except for the bar and the dus, then she'ein tzarich likach derech, then he doesn't have to, because clearly, like we said, that same rule is that if you add something into the shtar that doesn't have to be added, then it's there for a reason. So the reason why he added it, even though he didn't have to, is to show that he's keeping the bar and the dus, and he's also keeping access to it. Now this is the other way around. Here he sold the bar and the dus to somebody else. That's all he sold. He didn't sell anything else. So he does not have to buy, meaning the guy who bought the bar does not have to buy the derech, because it's included in the bar. And the Chacham say he does need to take himself a derech, because it's not included in there. So now, right? So then the shita switch here, depending on what you're selling. If you're selling a house and included in the house, and excluded from the house is the bar, which is according to everybody, then the machlokes is access to the bar included. And the other one, but if he sold the bar and the dus, so then it's the same machlokes, but the psak switches, right? Okay, so the Gemara says, Yosef Ravina v'kakashale hainu bar hainu dus. A bar is a dus, meaning it's not a bar and a dus are two different things. But what's the chiddush? Meaning, why do you have to call bar and dus? It should be the same din. So Rava Tosfa Ravina. So Rava Tosfa said to Ravina, Tashema the Tanya echad abar ve'echad adus bekarka. The bar and the dus are both dug into the ground. Elasha bar b'chafira. A bar is just a hole. You dig a hole and you put water into it, or let the water run into it. But dus is bebinyan. The dus is actually built, meaning the dus you line it with cement or something of the sort. So there's a difference there. Okay, and what's the chiddush? So Rashbam says the chiddush is that you would think that maybe the one that's cemented is considered a separate entity, but the one that's not cemented is it's just a hole. So what did the guy do? Kamash Malon, that both of them are considered separate entities. Find a similar Gemara. Yosef Ravashi Kakashale Hainu Bar Hainu Dus. Amalei Makshisha Breder Rav Chisda Ravashi Toshama the Tanya Echad Abar Vechad Dus the Karka. They're both in the Karka. Elashabar Bechfira. Badus Bebinyan. The Bar is with digging, and the Dus is with binyan. Fine. Then the rest of the daf now tries to figure out what the machlokes between Rebbe Kiva and the Chachamim is based on. Right? Just to repeat, in the Mishnah, everybody agrees that the bar and the dus do not go to the buyer. That can remain in the seller's property. Right? However, the question is, does he have access or not? So Rebbe Kiva says he gets no access, he has to buy access. Chachamim say he does have access. So, this is the machlokes on Tomei Beis. The Rebbe Kiva savar moicher pe'ein yafa moicher. When somebody sells, he sells literally means with a nice eye. Generous. A guy's generous. And when he sold him everything. So he sold him everything, not the pit, not the bar, but he sold him everything, and included that is the access to it. A moicher is selling with a bad eye, and he's cheap. He's not just selling access. So Mamela, whatever he could get away with, he gets away with.
Is this a question of Matthias? Like what people are?
No, I didn't understand it that way. I understood it as what's the default of kavanah of a seller.
I'm saying, so is this the Matthias of a default seller? Like, what is this? What are people generally good about it, or they're not good about it?
Machlekes are never Mitzias.
We try not to have machlokes in Mitzvah.
I don't think it's possible.
No, he's David's right. I mean, it sounds like from this that there's a Matthias here.
Yeah, I don't know what it bothers me what they're arguing on. Like, we assume what people do or don't do. That seems to be Matthias.
Right. So I think getting back to last night's big ruckus that we had, right? That what's going on over here with these vague, open to interpretation and all that. Meaning, how is it perceived? Maybe meaning what's the default that most sellers do, and then Mamela, that's what we're gonna have to do. You have a different question. Why are we not concerned with what the buyer thought? How come it's just all about the seller?
Yeah,
because isn't it because the seller's muhsuk, so he's always going to win?
it's also when it comes to stars, you always assume the seller is not going to win. The buyer is never the winner.
Well, what do you mean? But the buyer could say, well, so we're saying basically. So we're saying
whenever there's a shiloh, it's always going to be in the seller's favor because he has it right now. So to take it out of it, you have to bring a clear bona fide.
I don't know if it's because of Hamaitzi Mechavev Raya. Yad Bal Shtar Taflin, I think, is independent of Hamaitzi Mechavev Raya. It's the shiloh and the star. We always say it's all Taflin on the buyer.
Correct, but I'm saying that's as it came up last night in the conversation, right? That it seems like, and the buyer can't even back out, right? He's stuck. The buyer's stuck. So what do you mean? I thought I'm getting the bar. I thought I'm getting the access to the bar. Right? But that's not true. Right? Anyways. Yeah. Fine. But anyway, okay. The point is that right now the Gemara is saying the machlokes is whether a seller means to give as much as he wants to the buyer, or I don't know how much as he wants. I don't know if he wants to give that, but meaning, but is somebody generous or not? Are people generous in their sales or not? Right? Okay, so then the Rekiva some Mechabein Yafa Mechabein Rabbanasar Mechabein Rabbi. The Kamar Nami Baalma Rekiva Latame. Tamar Mechabein Yafa Mechabein. When we have Baalma, because we had it before, we had the Rekiva holds that this is Shitas Rekiva, that a seller sells generously. Mehacha, this is the source. But it's interesting when the Gemara is saying that this is the source that we know Rabbi Kiva does this. Who says that this is the machlokes? Maybe Rabbi Kiva holds that a person doesn't want to pay money for something, and then he's gonna have people coming marching all over his field. God, he just sold himself. Bought himself a field. But okay, so he doesn't get the bar. Fine. But then he has people marching in and out. Oh yeah, I'm just going to the bar. Maybe a person doesn't want to do that. For Rabbanan Savri, ain't nothing right to Shayita Mais for Yifrach Ba'avir. Maybe somebody doesn't want to take money, meaning the seller doesn't want to take money, and the only way that he could get into his bar is if he drop him from an airplane. Right? Or the Gemara, I'm assuming, didn't think that that's what it meant, meaning he flies. I mean, it has to be that he why would you ever keep a bar for yourself and not have access to it? Meaning the point is that maybe they had different reasons, and this would not be the source that Rebbe Kiva holds that sellers are what do you call it? Generous. So Gemara says, okay, we have a different proof. Elami Seifa. What about the Seifa of the Mishnah, which said the other way around, where if they sold the bar, Elami Seifa Machran la'acher, if they sold just the bar to somebody else, Rabbi Kiva says he doesn't have to buy rights in order to get there because that's part of the sale of the bar. And the Chacham say you do need to because it's not included. So you see, the Rabbi Kiva holds that the seller is generous, right? And he sold the buyer the bar plus the access to the bar, right? So the Gemara says, no, maybe that's not the source either. Maybe this is a machlekes. Rabbi Kiva sover poster tied to the lekeachas lina. Rabbi Kiva holds we go with the das of the lekeach, like we were mentioning, like we were discussing before, right? And Mamela, you're now all of a sudden here we're saying, oh, we have to go with the das of lekeach, which is obvious. The das of lekeach is for access, right? In Taisus, see the little Taisus, one Taisus there. So, meaning Peter Sheikhatika time of the Driso Pricha, where you have the taina that somebody's going to be coming marching through the field.
Parrots is not on, but I'll allow it.
What the Taisus?
Yeah.
I'm on, and I allow it. The 5-line test is okay.
So I'm saying, oh, I didn't see you. Okay, I'm sorry.
It's only a 3-liner. The first one's a Dibra Mas for the first two. Right? As long as I'm not doing rush bombs, that's
Yeah, I go see if they made us read the Dibra Mas. I'd never get away with.
No, that's true. It's true. We should read the Dibra Mas, but that's true. The Pirish Hegadiga time of the Driso Pricha. That's where you have this whole taina where you got people marching through the field that you just bought or the bar. But by trees, we would never care. We would never care about what the buyer thinks. So anyway, so maybe that's pshat. Rabbi Kiva is saying we go with the das of the buyer. But Rabbanan Tzavi Pasat to the Meicherazina. No, you go with the das of the seller. Right? Now again, I don't understand why. What the Rabbanan. What's a guy doing? Buying a bar with no access?
I don't really understand the whole access issue. There are other ways to use a buyer. The guy who sold his house but retained the buyer because he wants a source of income. He wants to rent it to the guy who bought the house.
Yeah, let's say the guy calls his bluff. I mean, you don't have much leverage.
Good. So he won't. He doesn't lose anything.
There's no competition. Who's buying this bar with no access?
Well, the second case. In the first case where he sold the house. In the case of Mishnah.
Second, I'm saying this case. I don't know.
He wants to. Yeah.
I mean, the Rashbam says, like Akiva was saying, that the yad of the yad is on the yad of the what's it called? The yad balashtar is on the tachtoinu. I always get
maybe it helps him with his taxes. It's a tax loss or something.
Oh, that would be that maybe taka. Yeah, I think nowadays in real estate, the buyer is right. The tenant is always right. No, Polly, don't they say that?
Unfortunately, yes.
What, renting? The tenant always basically wins, no matter what.
Yeah.
In New York City.
Yeah.
Depends on the state.
In New York City for sure.
Not in Arizona. You come over here, they kick you out right away.
There you go. Oh, they'll shoot you.
Elio's not on today. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so we don't have a proof from that one either. So then we go to another proof. Ella meha loyas habar. So now this price adds on a lot more. The Mishnah just said that when you sell a house, it doesn't include a bar and a dus. This price says loyas habar, veloyas hagas. If there's a wine press, veloyas hashoivach. Shoivach is the bird. What do you call it? Dove coat, whatever that is, meaning a bird. You
call it a chicken coop. It's easier.
Chicken coop. Yes, that's the word I was looking for. Yeah, chicken coop. Bein Charevin, Bein Yeshuvin, whether they're being Charev, whether they're destroyed, or whether they're being used, don't make a difference. So it doesn't include it in the sale, and the seller is going to have to buy access. And the Chacham say, no, you don't need it. So that is the same machlokes. as the Mishnah. So why do we need all these additional examples? Hasu lamali. Why do we need another brisa to tell us more examples? Must be it's coming to teach us this rule that Rebbe Kiva always says that a seller is generous. Rabbanan Sabri Meicher Bein Ra Meicher, and Rabbanan are coming to tell us that the guy that sells is not generous. So Gemara asks, no, maybe that's not a raya either. But bias. Maybe the Mishnah has to teach us about a house because our Mishnah says house. The Kamashmal and Soda, and then the Brisa or the next Mishnah has to teach us about a Soda. Why do we need a case of a bias and a Soda? Bias in the house. You need some tznius. The guy can't say, I sold you the house, but I didn't sell you the mikveh in the basement, right? So I comes marching in every morning. So there's a lack of tznius there. But a Soda, maybe Rebbe Kiva would say that he didn't give it up, meaning he understood that the guy's going to come marching through his land. In a Soda, people, it's bad for a field. You can't have people marching through your field to the bar. It's going to get worn out. Have a bias, but in a house, nothing's going to happen to the house if people come in and out. So Memela, we need to teach both cases, in which case we don't have an available case to teach us this machlokes over whether a seller is generous or not.
Is that true? I think most people would rather somebody walk outside their house than walk inside their house.
I think it depends on what you're doing with the field, no?
You'd rather somebody walk through your house? That means I'm just saying, that means everybody's got to be dressed properly. Everyone has to be, the floor doesn't get dirty.
David, you can still stay on your couch. It's no problem.
Don't worry, I wasn't doubting that.
Okay.
I was talking about the other family members.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. I would think I'd rather somebody walking through my backyard than walk through my house.
Yeah, but not if money counts for everything, right? And the guy's gonna march through your tomato patch, if that's what it's called, and he's gonna ruin your tomatoes, right? Anyway, it's okay with either way, but that's what the Gemara is saying, that you could think both ways. Mamela, we have nothing available to teach us this rule, right? Elami Sefer. So from the Sefer, Machra and Lacha, meaning this is the same case this is another Mishnah, but the same case as our Sefer, where they sold just the bar. Elami Sefer, Machra and Lacha, if they sold the bar to somebody else, he does not have to buy an access for the person who he sold the pit to. And the Chacham say you do. Now, that's it's an exact repeat of the first Mishnah. So what do we have that case for? It's the same case. The Rebbe Kiva holds that somebody who sells be'ein yafa, v'Rabbanan savri meicher be'ein ra meicher. Somebody sells, the seller is not generous, shma mina, and that is taka the way we learn. So, Memela, that's the source. The source is from the second part of the Mishnah that seems to be extra, right?
What do we hold about access? Meaning, if we like generally speaking, if there's a property with no other way to get it, can you walk through somebody else's property to get to it?
Can you cut? What do you mean? You want to use a shortcut?
And let's say there's a piece of property and surrounded on all four sides by other people's properties. Can you go through? Are you allowed to go through other people's yards?
No, you're not. I mean, you have to ask permission. No.
Could each person tell them no? Go to Yenim.
What?
Could each person tell them no? Go to Yenim, like you have with the kohen. You could tell the kohen, I'm giving to the other kohen. With those things with kohen and Levi, I'm giving to the other kohen. I'm not giving to the other kohen. He can't make any one particular person let him through because the other he could say go to the other three guys. Don't go to me.
Right, I hear. I'm saying you got to be careful anyways. Stop giving it up to the rabbi. Right, then if you do that for too long, 3 years, then you're stuck. Ask Aaron Cap. Right, so.
Yep.
Anyways, okay, so we'll stop over here. Short, sweet, and to the point. Okay, let's say till